The following podcast contains spoilers and words like piss, shit, and fuck. We watch the thing. We watch the thing.
Hello, beautiful people. You're with us at We Watched a Thing once again. You're with me, Dave. You're with him, Billy. Billy, say something in your deep voice.
Hello, everybody.
Ooh, yeah.
That's right. If you're here with us, that means that you chose wisely. See, I'm doing a reference there.
I recognised it.
How you been, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, better than you by the sounds of it. You sound fucking terrible.
Mate, fucking man flu. It hit me. This is only day 2 of it, but I feel like I've been hit by a bus. And you know, school holidays, so looking after the kids as well. It's just
Did they bring it home? That's normally what happens.
Yeah, I think they did. Because the 4-year-old was sick last week, and then the 9-year-old was in our room last night. So it's bloody hell.
Yep.
But we're not here to talk about sick kids this week. What are we here to talk about, mate?
It's part 2 of Jonesapalooza.
That's right.
We are here for parts 4 and 5 of this franchise.
Yes.
That being the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Dial of Destiny.
Well, shall we start with Crystal Skull?
Let's.
And shall we move on fairly quickly?
I don't know. I have things to say.
Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying it's not a good movie by any stretch. But
God, what are you doing?
I didn't have the level of hate for it that a lot of people seem to. I mean, like I said last week, Dial of Destiny is basically the first indie movie I saw, really. So I don't have the huge history with this franchise. I think
need to. It's just objectively awful.
I think from memory it was Wayne from The Countdown who was talking about this movie last week.
Oh God, he had a brain fart in that bloody episode.
No, I kind of get I disagree with what he said about Dial of Destiny.
Oh, so does every right-thinking person.
But what he said about this movie, I actually do agree with, and that's that this isn't necessarily a bad movie, but it's filled with bad moments, and that's the way I kind of feel about it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, mate. It has bad direction, bad writing. It's just conceptually bad.
Bad moments.
The only thing I will not have a go at, apart from John Williams, is the acting. Because I think the acting is fine. I think Harry is fine. John Hurt is perfectly fine. Shire's fine. Marion's fine. Oh, sorry. No, I tell a lie. I know in the past I've said Cate Blanchett's never had a bad performance, but she is fucking god-awful in this.
You can join my Blanchett hate.
No, one bad performance does not a career undo. And she's as hammy as fuck. She's not good, but the character is dreadful, and the writing is dreadful, and the dialogue. She's got nothing to work with, but so neither do the others, and they did fine. So I've got to point the finger at her as well. So the good guys all act well, the bad guys all act badly, and everything else about this movie is fucking trash. It's movies like this that make me really question the pedestal that we have Spielberg on. Because if he can put this out happily with his name on it and not Alan Smithy it, there's got to be something wrong. He's not as good as we think he is.
He can't do an Edmund Dante.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if they'd released this with Alan Smithy as the director? Everyone in the world knows it was Spielberg.
Yeah, exactly. He's too big. It's hard to blame him because I know that. Well, okay, it's not hard to blame him because you're right. He did at the end of the day say yes. But I think a lot of that has to be due to his relationship with Lucas, right? And he kind of just let Lucas tell him what to do, right?
Well, you've got to think shit like the monkeys is Lucas.
Yeah.
That's got like Ewok written all over it.
Yeah, and in the original draft, the monkey was only meant to be 14.
and someone misread it and said, "Oh, 14 monkeys." Okay. All right. Well, we'll start at the beginning. We'll rip through it really quickly because I just want to point out all of the main shit that I fucking hate with this movie. For starters, I mean, no fault of Shia LaBeouf, but the whole Marlon Brando wild thing, almost parody that they made that Mutt Williams character, is just awful from start to finish.
Yeah.
He acts it fine, but just the minute he rolls up, he's got the fucking hat, and it looked bad on Brando in the 50s in the wild one. It looks utterly ridiculous in a film in the 90s?
Yeah.
It was just ludicrous.
2000s. This
Fucking
was
hell,
2008. Yeah. This was
that really kind of says, okay, you've got the most ridiculous bad guy or bad gal imaginable. We don't have Nazis, so straight away this movie fails as an Indiana Jones. We've already established that if you don't have Nazis, it's not a good indie film. We've got Russians because topically that was probably on point at the time that they made this.
Yeah.
Why she carries a rapier is fucking beyond me. It's ridiculous. Whatever. Ridiculous haircut, ridiculous accent, ridiculous fencing weapon. We've got aliens instead of supernatural, which is the biggest fail. That's why this film was dead in the water. It just missed the brief of what this franchise is about.
Yeah. I also think the aliens were kind of way too prominent. You know, like no spoilers yet for Dial of Destiny, but the kind of twist there, the more kind of supernatural element happens quite late in the game. Whereas this, it's like very early on. It's like aliens. And
it fundamentally changes the world in which these films are set.
Yeah.
We have a universe where supernatural / religious stuff is a thing.
Yeah.
But we are now, written in the sand. And by the way, there's intelligent life on other planets or other dimensions or whatever the fuck it is. That's a thing now. There you go.
Yeah.
Just such a misstep. We've got Indy surviving a atomic bomb in a fridge.
That can happen.
Which, it can't.
Yeah, lead line fridges.
I know they zoomed in on the lead line thing, but it doesn't change the fact that the force of an atomic bomb would have crushed it.
No, I totally reckon
gently
that could work.
Bounce it around so that he can... And by the way, that was a 1950s fridge. I happen to know for a fact that once you went in that, you couldn't get out. And that was the whole... there was a whole thing in the 80s about don't let your kids die in fridges because they can't open them from the inside. So that was bullshit too. He would have... If the bouncing around didn't smush him to paste, which it would have done, he would have just starved to death in there, unable to get out. Fucking retarded. Just so dumb. Anyway, he survives that. That was stupid. We've got the whole thing. Yes, okay, they go on a ridiculous motorbike chase thing, which was passably okay as an action scene. But we then... Fucking hell. I'm gonna skip over.
Listeners, I wish you could see Dave's face right now. He's so angry.
I can't even, because I rewatched it again yesterday, so it's all fresh hatred. I can't even. I'm gonna skip straight to the fucking monkey shit. We have on this horrendously badly conceived chase through the jungle, which has got to be a Lucas thing because it felt like a speeder bike race. But Mutt's at one point you've got, between all the jumping back and forth on vehicles for no reason, you've got Mutt. Why they called him that? I guess because they named the dog Indiana.
That's what I was going to say. To me, it's so on the nose.
It's on the nose. It's Pinocchio level on the nose. But he's on the back. He's on the back of one of these stupid little vehicles, and gets caught in a vine around his midriff and gets pulled off. Okay, fine. For some reason, he just gets pulled up into the fucking canopy for no... Why? What pulled him? We don't know. It happened. Encounters all these monkeys and starts swinging like fucking Tarzan through on these... And at a speed that will keep up with these racing vehicles. Which, they're on a bumpy dirt road, but they've got to be going at like 60 or 80k an hour. They're trying.
You
they're
can't
racing
swing that fast.
You can't. Tarzan can't swing that fast. Mutt certainly can't. For some reason, the monkeys follow him. There's a lot of intelligent animals with agendas in this film. The monkeys are one of them. They follow him, chase these vehicles with some sort of mental command. He doesn't even say go. But they all swarm the baddie's vehicle and attack her. And by the way, the I don't know if it was CG or if it was just really bad done on a soundstage really badly, but the vision of him swinging on those vines with the monkeys is so
CG
awful.
In this
Oh
movie
my
is
God.
really bad. It is very bad.
So bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they do that. They bounce the skull back and forth between the vehicles a number of times. Then we get to intelligent animals with agendas scene number 2. And we've gone down the evolutionary. Now we're ants with agendas.
Yeah.
Giant
this is the
giant
dumbest
ants.
bit of the movie.
Giant ants that are about 5 inches long and the size of your forearm. That not only chase people for some reason, but when our main villainess manages to grab one of these vines and haul herself up off the ground where they can't reach, they start forming a bridge to chase her up into the air.
Yeah, it's
so
dumb.
God.
It's easily the most ridiculous part of the movie in a movie filled with ridiculous moments.
It would be if Marion didn't drive a car over 3 waterfalls the size of Niagara Falls.
Yeah. It's like the scene in
they
Fast
all
and
emerge
Furious where they're
laughing
driving
at
out of the towers
Jesus.
in Dubai.
I would, if you gave me a choice, I can either drive down that dam in Fast 10 or go over even one of those waterfalls. I'll drive down the dam because I'll die, but I might have a 1% chance of survival. No one is surviving even one of those waterfalls, let alone 3 of the fucking things. Oh, God, I can't even talk about this anymore. It gets worse from there because we have fucking aliens and portals to other dimensions and other shit. But oh my God, this movie sucks.
So how are you scoring this movie then? I need to... Is it a 1?
It's a fucking 1.
Wow. There you go,
And that
people.
1, actually, it's 1.5. I give a half to John Williams and I give a 1 to the 4 main hero actors. Everything else is a fucking 0. It's awful.
It's a 4 from me, only because, as I meant, Dave just spat his drink out, listeners.
It's a brand new fucking keyboard and I always spat beer all over it.
Only because I have, like I said, I have no great love for this franchise. I had enough fun with this movie. I think, if you go into it just being... And I had so much warning. Like I said, this movie came out in 2018.
It's not like you were going in cold. The entire world is flagged.
Exactly.
Signposting this
all
film.
I've heard about is how stupid this... And all the dumb moments I knew about. I've heard countless times about the fridge, about the monkeys, about the aliens. So for me going into it, it was like, I know what I'm watching here. I'm basically watching fucking a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie at this point. So I have no great expectations for this thing. So
I do feel sorry. I do feel sorry for Shia because I'm a Shia LaBeouf apologist. I think he's a good actor.
I think he's done some great
He's a
work,
bit of a weirdo nutcase, but I mean,
Yes.
you've only got to watch things like Peanut Butter Falcon. He's a really, really good actor. And
Peanut Butter Falcon is great. The other movie he did that same year where he plays his dad.
He
I
plays
forget
his
the name
dad.
of it.
Yeah.
That's great as well. Honey Boy.
He's genuinely talented. He takes it a bit seriously, and when you hear him in interviews talking about his craft in inverted commas, he's a bit of a wanker.
He does, and yet he was also willing to rock up and do the whole Citizen Kane clap thing in the Shia LaBeouf video clip.
Oh, I was going to say
the greatest song of all time.
for all the wanky performance art things, you've also got the Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, which is to this date the best thing on the internet.
100%. I laugh at it every time.
It's amazing how that guy. I don't know anything else he's done, I'm assuming he's a comedian of some kind. I haven't bothered to look it up, but how he's not world famous as a comedian for just coming up with that is beyond me.
Yeah.
But I feel sorry because they were obviously shaping him up. Lucas, for a time, intended for Mutt to be the main character in the fifth film because they had 5 films, always from the 1980 or whenever when they kicked off. It was always 5 films.
Yeah.
That was their initial deal with whoever the production house is or the whatever company. It was 5 films. The 5th film, Lucas wanted to be a Mutt, and he wanted Indy to be sort of retired, and it was going to be the Mutt story. And then this fucking dog turd of a film tanked so badly, that all died in the arse. And so poor old Shire, who was fine in this film, he's absolutely fine. He did nothing wrong, and he lost his chance to be a star of an indie film because the writers were so bad at their jobs.
Well, speaking of the 5th one, shall we get over to that?
Oh, please.
Let's do it. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a 2023 American action-adventure film directed by James Mangold, who co-wrote it with Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and David Koepp. The 5th and final installment is what it says here on Wikipedia.
Yep.
Stars, of course, Harrison Ford, John Rhys Davies, Karen Allen reprising their roles, along with
don't know if you can still
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Antonio Banderas, Toby Jones, Boyd Holbrook, and Matt Mikkelsen. And what is it about, Dave?
We rejoin our protagonist, Indy. Now acting his age, which is rather unusual in Hollywood. It is 1969 because it is Moon Day. And he is very much the crotchety old man. He's in the act of retiring from his professorial gig, living alone and really out of place in the world. It's not the most glamorous of starts for Indiana. We encounter who we discover is his goddaughter, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. We get a short round 2.0. And we are chasing down archaeological things, which is refreshing after the alien shenanigans of the film that won't be mentioned. I should mention we do get the standard Indy cold open where we're back in Nazi Germany with Toby Jones alongside.
I think is a really good cold open. I really liked this.
I thought it was a crack. We're introduced to Mads Mikkelsen, who's our bad guy, rival archaeologist of sorts, which I mean, this movie is Callback City, but it takes us back to Raiders, where we do have a rival archaeologist as one of the main bad guys. Initially, we think we're looking for the Spear of Longinus, but it turns out that's a fake, and that's not the MacGuffin for this film. It is, in fact, Archimedes' Dial of Destiny, a device which supposedly, due to his mathematical brilliance, can predict wormholes in time or some such nonsense. And we go chasing around the globe looking for the other half of this thing. And eventually find it and do some stuff. I should note at this point, if you haven't seen this film and have even the remotest interest in it, you should probably log out now and come back once you've seen it, because unlike the previous films, it will be utterly destroyed by spoilers if you hear, as we are going to discuss, sort of what happens in the final act. So go away, but do come back later once you've seen it.
Yeah. So as mentioned, I saw this film basically as my first indie film. I had seen Raiders, but I had virtually no memory of it. And my wife and I, it just kind of timing lined up. We went date night. The new D-Box seats, which are like 4D seats, they move with the movie.
Oh, fuck, I haven't gone. That just sounded terrible. I did read about, I don't know what they're called in my local chain.
It was so fucking weird. Like when Indy's riding the horse, the seats are rocking.
Yeah, fuck
like
that.
You're on a horse.
I go to gold class, so I'm normally 3 beers in by about the halfway point. I don't want to be doing that.
But I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. It's a much more modern take on an Indiana Jones film. I think even just from a storytelling perspective, it follows much more modern story paths. Like, it almost feels like it could be... I mean, it's a lot better, but I'm going to throw it out there again. Fast and Furious, it follows a kind of a similar narrative structure to the way that those films do. There's lots of global travel and kind of, you know, set piece after set piece. But I actually really liked this movie, and it's been very divisive. People either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And I can totally get it. The people who, you know, Indiana Jones is their thing, I can get why it would be uncomfortable for them to see him in this state as this grumpy old kind of piece of shit guy. But I personally really enjoyed that that's the Indy we got in this film. And like, the movie has its flaws. I'm not going to gush about it from start to finish. But that's one thing about it that I really, really liked. I know that you were really keen on it and had heard good things. What were your first impressions?
Yeah, I should say I am one of those indie guys. But I don't know how anyone could not like this. I fucking loved it.
Nice.
There we
go.
This is now my favourite indie film.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's easily mine, I think.
And you know what it is? No fucking Lucas. He wasn't involved in this at all. No, Spielberg wasn't involved. You've got a fresh director who's fucking good. We all love James Mangold. He's great. Great writers. The Butterworths are, you know, such a strong pedigree. Ford v Ferrari, fair go. You know, the Edge of Tomorrow. These are great writing. You know, great writers. Best writers that have been on this since Philip Kaufman first helped create the character, and it shows. I enjoyed this from start to finish.
Yeah, right.
There's not really a whole lot that I could fault with it. To be honest.
I still think there's plenty of silly things about it.
There's a couple of niggly things. The MacGuffin is silly even by indie standards. The idea that you could create this physical object that's literally just 3 or 4 cogs on a big watch that can somehow predict rips in time is, you know, don't think about that too hard.
Yeah.
But everything else about the plot I loved. You had I don't agree about the Fast and Furious thing. I think it's more akin to in parts to a 60s or 70s Bond film, really. You're gallivanting around the globe. You've got, you know, cool underwater bits where you're trying to find things, cool chase scenes and stuff. It had a sort of an old school Bond film feel for me in parts of it. I like the fact that, and I've heard other people who didn't like the fact that there wasn't a romantic. I like the fact that, given the age that Indy and Harrison is, we didn't, you know, have a younger female lead through it, which would have felt really off. And probably if Lucas had been around, we probably would have had her, and she would have been about 16. But I like the whole goddaughter thing.
Same. And I like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I thought she was
I
good.
adore her. You don't adore her enough because you haven't watched Fleabag yet, but you will.
Well, I will. I have to.
That's true. Yeah, it's teacher is wagging their finger at you. But I thought she was great. I mean, what about you? Did you you mentioned that there's a few things that you could?
Yeah, I do think that there's some silly moment. I do stand by my Fast and Furious comment, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I love a lot of those movies.
I should refresh my memory that you actually thought Fast 10 was a great film, so that's probably praise.
Like, you know, I think that a lot of the action sequences in this film are what I would describe as dumb fun, and I don't think that makes them any less good. But, you know, like, him riding that horse through the subway is not something we would have had in an 80s Indiana Jones movie. And not just because of the practicality of doing it. It's a very, very silly
9
moment.
horses died in the making of...
Like, it's a very, very silly moment, but fuck, is it fun to watch.
But it does make a little bit of sense. I mean, you've got a guy who's in his late 70s at the time of filming, being on horseback is probably more familiar, more comfortable for him than getting behind the wheel of a car at this point.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other one I think of is the massive chase scene through God, I can't even remember where it is. Wherever they go, where they run into her ex, who's wanting to kill them, and it's one of those classic. He's chasing them while they're chasing someone else. And
is this the one in Cyprus?
That must be where it is. Yeah,
Cyprus or Sicily? No, Cyprus, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's a little bit OTT, but it is fun. Like, I had a lot of fun with this movie, and I think it does do some more kind of interesting things. Like I said, I for example really like the fact that this is an older, more crotchety Indy. I like the relationship between him and his goddaughter. I like all of that stuff. I have no great love for Marion. I don't understand that. From my perspective, when I watched this movie, I know that she was only in Raiders. Like, I hadn't seen, the Abomination.
Of course, you hadn't seen the
Crystal
Abomination
Skull
yet. Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, I don't care that she's not around. Like, I think that's fine. It's an interesting take that they've split up. It makes sense. They clearly made the decision to kill off Mutt. So poor Shia LaBeouf.
Poor Shia again. Not only is he there, he's not even off at college or something. It's he went to war and died.
Yeah. But at least they made that make sense, and it did something extra for the character of Indy, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we finally actually get some development with this character in this film.
Yeah. We mentioned last episode that compared with Han Solo, Indy doesn't really have much growth in given that these movies take place over several decades, other than getting older and slower. He doesn't really develop at all. But I think in this film, there's so much more depth to him.
100%.
He has...
Which is why I'm only slightly disappointed by the ending of the film. But we'll get there when we get there.
I know what you're going to say, and okay, we'll get there. A couple of things that I did think weren't perfect. Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena, a fairly weird arc for her, where she's starts out as this kind of almost grave-robbing ambulance chaser who's only in it for the money, which I bought that. Her father went mad and died, and so she sort of had this archaeological upbringing where she knew all this stuff, but she didn't have the passion. She rebelled against it, and so she became a soldier of fortune or of sorts. That I
felt
bought.
the same way. Yep.
But to go from leaving him to die, where she sort of locks him behind with Boyd Holbrook and his army of gun-toting loons, basically leaving him to die, essentially.
Yeah.
That seemed a bit extreme to then come back at the end and be the character that I think she should have been all the way along, which was... there was a bit of a flip there, which I didn't think was possibly... paced as it should be.
I agree.
Boyd Holbrook's character, he seemed wasted. I'm a Holbrook fan. I like him. I think he's great. You could have had any fucking actor in that role. He didn't really. He was
even just as a character. I feel like it's
thug.
I feel like it's a bit of a waste of a character. Even I feel the same way about the FBI agent. I almost don't understand the point of having her there for the first 20 minutes.
I thought she was going to be there all the way through as.
Same.
One of the antagonists, but the one who's in it for the right reasons, essentially. And then at the end, not at sort of the halfway mark, she realizes that the people she's working with aren't ex-Nazis, they're current Nazis.
Yeah.
So to me, that was a completely pointless character. Why Boyd was a Nazi at the age of about 25 or 30 or whatever.
I don't know, man. There's plenty of them about still. You're like, I don't want to get political on this thing, but
presumably they bought into the whole grand mission of Mads Mikkelsen's character, and that they knew they were going back to the thick of World War II.
That's the thing that for me doesn't make sense.
That's a lot of Nazi fervor to go. Yep, I'm gonna give up on whatever life I have here in the present. Where we've got, cool motor cars and the Beatles, and I'm going to go back to the late 30s and live the rest of my life.
Yeah, for sure. That to me is the thing that didn't make sense. Yeah.
But other than that, everything about this I fucking loved.
I mean, I know I do this every week, but how fucking great is the score? This is and I mean, there's no wonder. Like, Williams is back. There's so many callbacks to the original score, which for me just work really well. There's something about John Williams. It's the same feeling I get, and I think I've spoken about this before. Spielberg movies have this ability to make me nostalgic, even if I haven't seen them. You know, like, even if I didn't see them as a kid or anything, somehow they give me that childlike feel. John Williams' music does the exact same thing for me. I hear so many pieces of his score, and it just makes me feel happy and nostalgic, even if, you know, like, for example, with this franchise, I had no great love for it, but it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, they couldn't have done otherwise, I guess, but I love the fact that they have kept the Williams score and they brought it back in all the right places. The theme came in at all the right spots throughout, you know, when it should have done. Yeah, just fabulous.
Yeah. I want to talk about the end because I'm curious to get your take on a lot of this.
Yeah.
You already spoke a little bit about how silly the concept of the Dial of Destiny is, that somehow it can predict fishes in
I think
time.
the execution was excellent.
I agree, and I mean, credit where credit's due. I've heard some people rag on the visual effects in this film. I think they're, for the most part, really, really good.
Yes, I should have mentioned this earlier. That entire cold open where we have the de-aged Indy, the de-aged Mads Mikkelsen, and even Toby Jones to a lesser extent, I thought that was flawless CG. I'm far from an expert, but it's about the best de-aging I think I've ever seen.
I don't think it's as good as, you know, I think the best example I can think of is Sam Jackson in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, that was good. But by the same token, I think Clark Gregg in Captain Marvel was not good at all.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
But unlike Sam Jackson in Captain Marvel, Indy was close up, face to the camera, filling the screen for 20 minutes. He wasn't getting in and out of cars and stuff.
And it was still a good fun action sequence. It wasn't like watching The Irishman, for example. I think it was still really well choreographed. I thought that scene looked great. And I thought the VFX throughout the whole film are really good.
Yeah, I'll freely admit, for the first few seconds of that cold open, I assumed it was stock footage or something that was shot in a previous film that I didn't remember.
Yeah.
Obviously, the longer it went, that became obvious that wasn't the case. But that's how good it was.
Yeah. Actually, before we move on to the ending, there's one more piece of casting I want to talk about. Antonio Banderas, which I did not know he was in this film.
And my 11-year-old son leant over to me super excited and went, "Dad, it's Puss in Boots."
Yeah, I know.
Which goes to show what an iconic voice actor he is.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of fun. And that whole sequence on the boat actually was really cool too. You brought it up before, that whole underwater sequence.
Oh, with the eels. Fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
really,
callback to them being like snakes.
Being like snakes, and it I don't think you've even seen it, but it brought to mind Thunderball for me, which is why I made the Bond reference. There's a whole underwater where they're going through a sunken wreck trying to get in that case, circuit board thing that controls, you know, rockets and whatever. But it felt very similar. And I love the old school diving equipment. There with the pipes going back up to back up to the boat. Just great.
Yeah. All right. So back to the ending.
Yeah. So we
were talking about the Dial of Destiny.
There's a fisher in the sky.
I was a little bit confused by the end as to exactly the science behind that, given that it is then
You're using that word science very loosely.
Well, it is then implied that Archimedes kind of purposefully brought them back there, which then asks the question, is the Dial of Destiny doing what we think it's doing? Is it detecting fishes in time? Is it only detecting fishes that go back to this exact date? is it somehow creating that fissure? Like, I don't understand fully what it's supposed to be doing.
My understanding was they thought it just detected cracks in time, essentially.
Yeah.
And depending on how you set it, you could find a crack in time to a particular destination.
Yes.
Why they thought that is beyond me. I don't think they ever mentioned writings about this object that would have given them any indication about what it does.
Yeah.
It's a MacGuffin in the purest sense. It's not explained. It's just there to further the plot. Even more so than any previous film. You just got to kind of take that. But what they discover is that it detects cracks in time, but they all lead to source point zero, which is where Archimedes was when he created it. Why that's the case, who knows? It just is.
No, well, they imply that he wanted that. He wants them to come and help him win the war, I guess, is what they kind of allude to. Which, yeah, I get. That's cool, but I don't understand. Yeah, how did he do that purposefully?
I know Paul and Wayne, I think, mentioned that, and I've heard others mention that it was built for him to get help in the war against the Romans. I must have missed that bit in the actual film because I don't remember anything in the film where that's alluded to. They do say,
Indy
"Oh no,
says it.
it will always lead back here." I remember that bit, but I must have missed the bit where they imply that he created this thing to bring help from the future, which I don't like that if that's actually part of it. I think that's a bit silly, but
yeah, same. I did like the tie-in though with him with the watch, with him wearing the watch when they found his grave, and then that turns out that's the Nazis' watch.
Yeah. No, that was good. And I did think that earlier when they find his body with the watch, did you twig straight away time travel's coming into this bitch?
No, I didn't. Did you?
Yeah, I've heard other people say, oh, well, they assumed that he had somehow travelled in time and that's how he got the watch and stuff. My assumption when I was watching it was, people are going to be going back in time.
Yeah, right.
At no point did I think Archimedes had come to the future and then gone back.
Yeah. Well, let's get to it then. The end of the film, they do go back in time, as we said. They meet Archimedes.
Yep.
There's some really cool moments there. I wanted Indy to stay in the past.
I knew you were going to say this.
He wanted to do it. It made sense to me. It was a fitting kind of... And you obviously disagree with me there.
Well, no, I would have been perfectly happy. And I thought that's because I knew this was the fifth of five.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford's, even though people have asked, are there going to be more, are they going to recast? He said, this character dies with me. And I think that's I don't think they would ever recast this. I think it would be a horrendous misstep. So I did assume that he was, when he got shot, I thought he was actually we were going to see him die. I didn't think he was just going to be left behind. I thought he was actually going to have an on-screen death. That said, I loved the ending so much that I'm happy with what they did.
Yeah, okay. I don't give a shit about Marion. He kind of, to me, he had nothing to go back to. His kid was dead. He'd been divorced. Like, he had nothing to go back to.
The only reason they broke up was
ruining that
because of the grief of losing the child. And it's sort of alluded to, well, it's not alluded to, I think he states it outright on the boat, that it's not her fault. He pulled away from her.
Yeah.
And basically became a bit of a sad sack who was just going through the motions in life and not being the guy that she was in love with, which is why when she says, I heard you were back. Yeah. Are you back? Meaning, because, are you Indiana Jones again, or are you just sad sack old guy Henry? And then they have the call back to the kissing your injuries better bit from Raiders, which I thought was so good.
Yeah.
Nah, fucking loved it. And we should mention Sala's back.
Yeah.
Good old John Rhys Davies.
Yep.
You know, that was awesome having him back. Obviously, we can't have Denham Elliott back. He sadly passed away. But it's as much of a reunion as we could have had to the original Raiders, and I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Well, so then how are you scoring Dial of Destiny? You've already said it's your favorite indie film. Does that mean that this is... Are we in 9 territory?
This is a 9.
Wow.
Yeah. The silly MacGuffin and the things I've already spoken about are not enough to detract from how much fun I had with this. And I loved it. The kids all loved it from start to finish. My 15-year-old daughter was beaming from ear to ear going, he was kissing her like in the first one.
Nice.
I loved it.
Yeah, I'm an 8. I agree. This is my favorite of the indies. Of all of them, this is the one I'm most likely to rewatch, I think. I think that this was a lot of fun. I think that Harrison Ford was fantastic. I've heard so much criticism about Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I personally really liked her.
She can do no wrong.
Board.
She's, I know she wasn't involved in writing this, but she's a phenomenal writer. I love her as an actress. She's whip smart. I've got nothing but time for her.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are we getting to next week, mate?
Next week. We're doing a double next week as well.
We sure
So
are.
much shit at the movies.
I know.
super. 2 of my most anticipated films of the year are both just in cinemas now. We've got Insidious, The Red Door, and we've got fucking more Mission Impossible shenanigans.
That's right. One movie that I'm extremely stoked and anticipating, and one movie that I kind of couldn't give a toss about, but I'll see anyway. I don't give a shit about Mission Impossible. I thought Fallout was so overrated.
Oh my God.
So next week's going to be a heap
He drives
of fun.
off a cliff on a motorbike. Come on.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, God, what am I going to do with you?
It's going to be fun. So there you go. That's next week. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show on Patreon and listen to our brand new exclusive music series, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing. And we'll catch you next week.
See ya.